Hello everyone and welcome to episode 2 of the Carousel of Progress, Let's Build. And in today's episode we are beginning but not fully finishing the first major scene in the attraction. This is the 1900s American home, and we're starting off with our host sitting in a comfy chair. And one of the things you're going to notice throughout the video is that each little prop I build takes an extremely long amount of time in this video. I've never really built at this kind of level of detail before, and I'm still, as much as it hurts to say, I'm still a total noob at knowledge on what pieces are in the game and where to find them. So I spent a lot of my building time just looking through the menus, trying to find pieces, trying to see what those pieces could be used for. I went for a lot of pieces that people don't normally use in certain places, and tried to be creative and make something original that was also true to the pictures and stuff that I was using as inspiration. Here we start building up the back wall. You quickly saw some clips of me building that little table and the butter churning thing. Not exactly sure what that's called. And then this little blue table is something that I revisit later. I kind of made it too small at the beginning, and I realized later that I needed to fit more props on it, so that will be revisited later. Here I'm just finishing up the windows, putting in curtains, and then adding the wallpaper around the windows. And here you see me revisiting the table and using a bigger circle as the top, keeping that little plate of cups and bottles and stuff there, and then adding this light, which is in the reference pictures that I'm using. Now I do a little bit of lighting just because the final scene, the final show, is going to take place at night. And then I decided to go into the windows, and the windows using the clear in-game glass, so I needed a fake background behind them like they have in the real ride. So I used these light up color panels in a nice light blue for a sky, and then I put some small trees, bushes, and a white picket fence. And then I put this main light up here to kind of act as a sun, gave that a warm glow color, and then added in the fence. I noticed that some of these things looked too dark, so I added these lights to kind of light everything up, make sure that you could tell that it was a white picket fence. And this bush sticks through the wall for a little while, but I eventually catch it and move that back. Now this is something that was a struggle. I was trying to build a thermometer, because there is an old-timey thermometer up on the wall in the first scene of the Carousel of Progress, and I really struggled on this because it kind of has this circular bottom part that I'm trying to do here, and then this stick part like you'd see in a normal thermometer, but it kind of kept looking like a clock for some reason when I had the white art shapes in there. So then I said, okay, I'll try to put this wooden frame around it, and I'll turn the white to a gray, and whoopee, now we have a banjo on the wall. So I quickly deleted that and went back and just added in one of these upside down lights. For now, I do go back and make it a little bit more convincing. Here we're making one of those old-timey phones with a little earpiece that you can take out of the box. So this was pretty easy. This is one of the quicker things. Here I find that little icing piece that I think looks better. I tried to put in some red to make it the inside of the thermometer, however this did not work despite my many efforts. And here we are finishing up the phone, putting in the little earpiece, just using the snowman pipes for that, and then using those sirens again. Those are a really helpful piece because they're nice and small. Here we are just finishing up the walls. This wood spooky pieces as the trim. We had to make another window because there is a window behind where the sink is going to go, and then just copying in these columns, making it all look nice and cohesive. Here we're just copying over the window design I used. And then I realized that we couldn't have the curtains falling into the sink. And on the real ride, they have the same curtains, but shorter. But since I couldn't do that in Planet Coaster, I just decided to make them look as if they were folded up and kind of sunk them into the top of the windows. And now we start on the sink. This is the first very detailed piece of furniture, I guess you could call it, or house appliances that I did. These took the majority of the time and really came out quite nicely. I'm very happy with the final result of the 3 main things you'll see me build here. So we start with these wood crates as the main base, put in some wood paneling, and then we put in some little details like the hinges on these shelves. I eventually took out the right shelf, and you'll see me replace it with a hand towel later. Here we are doing the hand towel. Got this nice kind of striped pattern on it. And then just something to hang it from using these large light pole pieces. Now we go to the faucet, which funnily enough in this is a hand crank pump. Something you probably see on a farm or something in this green color. So I used the sprinkler actually, and I turned that off, and that was the main kind of base of the thing that I built off of in order to make the pump. And then I just put some small pieces in here to make it look more pump-ish, and then I put in the base of the sink, which I use these silver signs. Even though you won't really see these from the ride, I think it'd be nice to make it look good, even if someone wants to go up on stage and take a look. Here we are making the drain, just using some VFX pieces, and then I think after this we go in and we put the handle on the pump, because right now it's looking pretty bare. Yeah, and then I use this small candy cane, colored it green, and then that is kind of the handle that you would pump the water out of. And then in that quick cut, I just copied over the blue sky and picket fence that I did in the other window across to the sink so that it all matches nicely. And then now we start on my favorite part of the build, which is the iron stove. Incredibly happy with how this came out. Used a lot of these movie boxes. They had this nice kind of iron trim and dark metal inside that I really thought looked exactly like what I was going for. So you'll see me use a bunch of these. This camera piece, I noticed the top of it could be used almost as a kettle or something that was sitting on top of the stove, because there was a lot of clutter in the pictures that I looked at. Got some hanging spoons or ladles there, covering up with an iron top using those signs again. Those signs are pretty handy. They're nice and thin, and you can really use them to nicely detail different objects. Finding a piece for the legs was actually quite tricky. I ended up using the mutt tail and just sinking that all the way. I needed something metal, something thin, and those just happened to work the best out of anything I could find. Here I struggled a bit to find a piece that would hold up this little metal side part. Not really sure what this is. I'm no stove expert, but I needed something that would hold these up, and I eventually settled for the icing pieces, which I find in a second here. I want to use this lamp for a little circle. I could be kind of excessive with the large pieces I use because I have tons of space below and behind the show scene, so I can pretty much use whatever pieces I want, even if it is a big piece for a tiny little detail like that circle. There we go, put in the icing pieces, use these sci-fi panels for the back of the stove, and then now we're just finishing up the top part. But I really think the details on the bottom really help tie the scene together. The stove is kind of something that your eye is naturally drawn to, because of the shininess and the little details here and there. I think it really came out nicely. The one sad thing is that in the show, the host, who you can see sitting on the right, has a dog that kind of woofs every once in a while during the show, but as far as I know, there's no way to get a dog, anything that looks like a dog, onto the show scene. I might have someone try to make something Theme Maker's Toolkit for that, but pretty unlikely that we're going to have a dog in there. And here I am just adding a little bit more clutter onto the top of the stove, finishing up this piece. Now we're decorating the wall, or this wall behind the stove. I decorate some of the other walls a little bit more later, adding in a little shelf here, and then above this we're going to do our first of 2 picture frames so far. This one I just wanted something simple, something that would kind of catch your eye, but didn't have to be anything too detailed. So I said this is a Disney ride, I'm being inspired by a Disney ride, so I thought we'll just throw a little hidden Mickey up here in a picture frame. The thing I like about it is because I use the half circle technique, it doesn't really look like a Mickey all the time because of the way the light hits it, so you only kind of sometimes see the Mickey, so it's a little more hidden than you might think. And here's our last main piece of furniture / appliance. This is the ice box or refrigerator. And I use these trapdoors because I want as much animation in the show as possible. So when the guy starts talking about his brand new ice box that can fit 50 pounds of ice and keep all the food cold, the fridge will open up and you'll be able to see what is behind those trapdoors. So I did some simple woodwork on the outside and then used the metal signs for the 3rd time this video to make a white interior for the refrigerator. I added in a few lights that will trigger during the show as he begins to talk about each thing, and these will be triggered on and off to kind of move the watcher's eye onto what I want them to be looking at. And then here we put in the shelves into the refrigerator and the various food items that I chose to put in. The first one being some milk bottles, using those siren pieces again. At the very bottom I put in a steak or a slab of meat or whatever you want it to be. I originally tried this ornament, but it didn't work, so I settled for a giant piece of candy corn colored brown. And then above that, I put a peppermint colored gray, which could be some kind of bowl or metal, some dishes in there, I guess you could imagine it that way. Here we're just putting in another shelf over here, and then we're going to put one more painting up behind the stove, which is a nice little flower painting. I just hid a flower piece behind this and then put an art shape over it. It actually came out quite well. Looks pretty detailed and interesting. And that is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and any returning viewers from the first episode. I'm very happy with how this project is going. I think we had a great final result, and hopefully you guys enjoy it as much as I do. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.